course, August 11th, 2026, 7 p.m. Roll call, please, Ally.
Bierman,
Here.
Malcolm,
Here.
Persig is absent, Neal,
Present.
Evie is absent, Bates,
Here.
Alexander,
Here.
Gooding,
Here.
Benjamin,
Here.
Okay, thank you. At this time, would you join us in the pledge allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, at this time, this is a continuation of our public hearing that we started August 7th, correct? That's the date, right? To continue this discussion, amendment to the text. And this time, so which way we're going to go with this? We'll get some staff comment, update on the staff comments, or not comments, but the text.
Sure.
And then at that time, we'll see where it goes from there.
So as you mentioned, this is a continuation of case PPTEXT 26-01. This is a text amendment. Emmet County Planning Commission initiated this. It's a commercial storage use text amendment proposal for Articles 2, 8, 11, 14, 18, 22, and 26. Definitions were provided to you in a new packet showing the changes that were proposed, and they're highlighted here just in blue. To the commercial storage facility and warehousing, we've suggested adding, based on your recommendation, 2 sentences. Each commercial storage facility or warehouse may include a maximum of 3 loading docks and or truck wells in total, and then battery energy storage systems and data centers are expressly excluded from this definition. And then to the self-storage facility, we've added or owned or sold as indicated in the text here. We provided to you both red line version and clean copy so that you could see it in action as it would be in the ordinance, and then also so that you could see the changes that were made. To the land use matrix, commercial storage facility warehousing was added back into B2 as a special land use with supplemental regulations that had been eliminated in the previous draft. General provisions to outdoor lighting, there was a recommendation by one member to eliminate that, but that was not direction from the whole planning commission. So in the supplemental regulations, section 26.30, the B2 designation was added back in, and then the dimensional requirements for the B2 district were added to the supplemental regulations, and the headings were changed so that you could see that the commercial storage facility is allowed in B2 as well as I, warehousing allowed in B2 as well as I, and then motor freight terminal and trucking facilities are only allowed in industrial zones. So the B2 district minimum setback standards would apply. That is not a change. The outdoor fronting, or for uses fronting in the vicinity of the state highway, that did not change, but the next one, buildings shall be no greater than 1 story and no greater than 20 feet in height. That was a change that was added during the last meeting. And then total floor area of each building shall be no greater than 10,000 square feet. That was added as well. And then to the emergency access, the headings were added so that they could be differentiated there, but the text did not change except for those highlighted here. So fire lanes shall be provided on all sides of buildings and shall provide a minimum unobstructed width of 25 feet and shall support fire apparatus. Those are the changes that were recommended at the last meeting. Then section 26.42, supplemental regulations for self-storage facilities. Same dimensional requirements were added, that the buildings could be no greater than 1 story and no greater than 20 feet in height in the B2 zoning district, and then total floor area of each building shall be no greater than 10,000 square feet. And then the fire lane access was the same as in the warehouse. No changes were proposed to section 26.09. And so those are the changes that we provided to you. We did send out a supplemental packet yesterday, which included a letter from Carrie May, engineer. This is the second letter that we have received from Carrie, and it explained how these changes impact property owners within Emmet County, and that they should be reviewed more thoroughly, and that it is inappropriate for the planning commission to conclude deliberations before receiving additional public input on revisions. Today we received input from the fire chief, Al Welsheimer, as a result of questions that I asked after providing this information to legal counsel. I asked for legal review of the text amendment, which is always something that we do whenever we have a text amendment to our zoning ordinance. That is proper procedure, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But also we received a letter from Zachary Stewart from Ulward, Fisher, Rice, Rowe, and Graff PLC, and that was on your desk this evening along with the fire chief's comments. So Mr. Stewart had indicated that he would request postponement, and then he identified items that are bulleted here on the screen that were issues that he felt were things that needed to be reconciled. The planning commission actions this evening can be to approve as proposed, approve with modifications, or postpone a recommendation to the September meeting. As far as legal counsel is concerned, legal counsel feels that in consultation with more than one attorney with the firm, that they agree that there has been enough new information and not enough time to review the proposed changes, and that they would need the opportunity to do a full legal analysis on these proposed text amendments. So in addition to the new information received from those that I mentioned, there's also a new email that came in just this afternoon with regard to clarification on some language, but it included data centers and battery energy storage systems, I believe. That just came late this afternoon. And then motion template, which was recommended by our legal counsel, is on the top of your desk this evening. It's a much shorter version than the one that was provided in the packet. And so if you're considering either of those or any of those three, then that would be the template that I would encourage you to utilize.
Okay, thank you. One other correspondence, I'm just gonna read this, that I received, I have no idea. It was a text message, someone apparently has my phone number, which is out there. It just says, was this morning, good morning, Tom, two exceptions to express. I appreciate your attempts to allow public input. That was about it. Hope you're here tonight at the meeting. And there were 2 bullet points that said master plan updates. It looks like something from off the internet. Commissioners can talk freely with the public at any time to gather general community input. That was a bullet point. And then an ordinance text amendment, bullet point, discussing broad zoning policy changes in citizens outside of meeting is generally acceptable because it applies to the whole community, not just a single property owner. So I have no idea where that came from, didn't respond, but just thought I'd share that. So, and I'm gonna right now trash. So there we go. Okay, at this time, any comments or questions for staff? I am going to, go ahead.
Could you just repeat the legal response that you had? It's not so much what they said, but I'm just trying to figure out how it relates back to us.
There has not been enough time for legal review, essentially. A thorough legal review of the changes that are being proposed.
For them to provide a response to us for tonight?
Yes.
Is that what they're saying?
Had they, but it was my understanding that the information provided in the amendment text amendment, as discussed in previous meeting, had been fully vetted,
Yes.
correct?
Well, provided to legal counsel all along the way.
Okay. So the language before we changed it was vetted. It's just that what was discussed last meeting to now has not been.
Well, I don't want to speak for legal counsel. I asked if they could attend tonight's meeting and they weren't able to attend, so if there's a specific question that we could provide to them, that would be fine, but I'm not able to speak on behalf of them other than what I have in my email.
I guess. Yeah. My question would be if at the last meeting, we would have approved the text amendments as drafted, if they would have also said, we need more time. Or if that was already adequately reviewed. And you're not them, but that, to me, that's the,
I think to your point, you're wondering if it was, and there again, she can't speak for council,
Yep.
but the swing we took at this, I'll say swing at it, the added stuff was not, had time to legally look at it, but that's what I'm understanding. Is that what you're asking the question?
yeah, I recognize that they would not have had time to go through everything discussed Thursday till now, but I would sincerely have hoped that we were not discussing language last meeting that also never had a chance.
To move forward,
Right, like, let's say there was no
Yeah.
conversation last meeting, we're just like, okay, sounds good, motion to approve. I would be frustrated if we were discussing a non-vetted amendment for 5 hours last Thursday, or if it's just this language.
that's a fair question, but
We don't know.
we don't know. But the new information sounds like they have not had an opportunity to review. That's why I'm
Yeah, that's how I hear it.
here. I'm just trying to
Yep.
see where it goes, or not goes, but help with questions. Anybody else got anything? At this time, as the chair, I am going to take public comment, open this back up to public comment. So we're trying to provide new information, give you ample time to speak. I think everyone that understands where we're at. And I'd appreciate any comments, and we'll go from there. I don't think we need to go through procedures. If we get that 3-minute window, I am gonna allow you a little leeway there. We're not gonna go 10, 15 minutes, but
Do you want
the
to
comments. Yeah, we'll just kind of.
Okay.
Did you fix it?
It fixed itself after 199 minutes. It reached the
Self-healing.
Y2 did itself.
I appreciate everyone here this evening, beautiful summer evening, but that's what we're here for, so. Anyone like to speak on this case this evening? Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for taking in my 2 letters. I appreciate it, and I hope that, you'll consider those tonight, the points on those.
Just for
Yep,
record.
Carrie May with Boyne Engineering and Design.
Thank you. It's up to you to give.
I got it, thanks. So, I don't wanna focus on the stuff in my letter because you want new information, and I have a couple of just new points I wanted to make. Again, I do want you to focus, if you can, on impacts as opposed to just putting in some arbitrary dimensions and setbacks, or size restrictions. And the reason I'm suggesting that is because number 1, it's more effective. Number 2, it gives you the flexibility you need when you're reviewing a site plan later to make it, and the designer and the developer, to make it the best development you can without being restricted into kind of a wonky box that's been defined because of a dimension. And also because it's going to have less unintended consequences, such as creating nonconformities, hindering infill development, and hindering redevelopment, which is what I'm going to talk about. I had the chance today to read through and find Chief Welshheimer's letter, which I think is where some of the dimensions have come from. I'm glad to see him here tonight. I work with him, quite a bit on developments. And I wanted to just talk about it because I brought along, I have 10 different storage facilities that I've designed in the past 5 years. Okay, and that doesn't mean that we have too many storage facilities. It means that there's a market-driven, legitimate demand for storage. Okay, and these include condominium pole barn storage, mini self-storage, commercial storage for boats and equipment, and farm forest condo storage. Okay, I'll give you some facts about those, but the first one I wanted to talk about is the access that was put in, the verbiage for the access. I'm familiar with the International Fire Code. The International Fire Code requires, and Chief Welshheimer can correct me if I'm wrong, a 20-foot wide access to within 150 feet of any point on a building. In other words, you can drive the truck up to within 150 feet, and then your firefighters can access with hoses or whatever the additional 150 feet. The proposed mandate is 25 feet wide to any point on the building. I just believe that this is going to create some unintended consequences. It's going to create nonconformities of existing approved uses. It's going to limit infill development, and I'm going to talk about that, and it's going to cause additional impervious surfaces and stormwater concerns. Okay, so an infill development is something that they are going to use an existing vacant building, or they're going to build around an existing building's use, and they're going to add to that use. Of the 10 that I designed, 4 of them are in Emmet County. All of the boat equipment and pole barge storages exceed 20 feet. None can be used as dwellings, and 3 are infill developments. So those infill developments, even the 3 that are infill developments, are within 200 feet of a state highway. So now if we've got a building that's been vacant and used for nothing, you're limiting something that's a really good use of unused property and parcels, okay? And so I just want you to think about what your objectives are as a planning commission as far as limiting impacts, but not limiting yourself on flexibility later to have the best developments and the best economics for your community. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Anyone else this evening? Yes, sir.
Matt LaHaye, L&L Contracting, resident off of Fletcher Road, Emmet County, Bear Creek Township. Going through this, working on some of these projects as a contractor, but also just looking at the way they impact our community and knowing a lot of the developers and people that have done it. We live in a blessed area, Petoskey, and there's a lot of people that work really hard, develop, gain some money, have an idea, and want to invest it to better themselves, to offer something to the community, which that then creates income and jobs and support for everybody around us working on it and everything. And so we also are blessed to attract some very successful people, lots of talent doing developments in other areas, and they want to be a part. They come up here vacationing, living up here, and they decide for some reason to do investments, to leave a better mark on the community. And what's happening that I've been seeing on tons of different jobs is that this county is becoming extremely difficult to make investments in that don't wind up with a lot of obstacles. And those obstacles then create added costs for that person that has just got enough money, they're trying to do something better, make a change in their lives, the community's lives, and that creates our economics that we all depend on. And Petoskey's done a great job because we are so blessed as a community. And so the impact, when I look at things in this, it seems like it's to hinder, it's to kibosh it, it's to restrict it, it's to make it so somebody can't do the development, can't come up with their ideas, so they have to do something else, and so it becomes restrictive. And, you know, instead of looking at how can we enhance the community, how can we work with the developers, how can we make the best use of storage and make it the best looking, it seems like we're finding ways of nixing it. And that just seems like a shameful thing, because us as citizens, we depend on the Board of Commissioners to make good decisions that are gonna enhance our community, make our lives better as the people that are out here grinding and making our way, as whether we're builders, engineers, or plumbers, or, you know, drywallers, whatever we are. And so we have to rely on you guys to make good decisions that can continue the vibrancy of this, to continue to attract some of these very talented developers that can do really cool projects and not just the bare bones minimum. And so the 300-foot setback that just seems so arbitrary, it doesn't make any sense. The 25-foot around the building just really also becomes, it limits, and again, doing the development, it does all of a sudden, it changes the way the layouts, how it can be used, the value of it, but then also how you're gonna deal with the water, how you're gonna deal with parking and movement of different things. So it becomes very restrictive, and I think it takes a lot of good projects and makes them not doable. And so I don't know if that's the intent, I would hope not. And we just ask you as a community to try to find ways to use this ordinance to make this a great investment, vibrant, bring vibrancy to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. I saw a couple hands, so go there first. Thank you.
Jen Van Desian, citizen of Emmet County, Center Township. Having been going through the process of trying to get a generator put into my house, I agree that there's a lot of restrictions in Emmet County that can make things, the red tape, seem kind of impossible. On the other hand, I think that what citizens are actually looking for in what you're looking at passing is specifically around the data centers, and that you actually need to pause and take consideration of what's happening up here. We have an area that's enviable to people, and they want to come here and invest because of the natural resources. Data centers are shown around the entire world, and especially in the United States, to deplete those resources at a rapid rate and leave citizens without them. If we don't have our water, if we don't have our trees, if we don't have the environment, the nature around us, what do we have? We don't have anything. So I would just like to urge that you take the time to study, especially specifically the University of Michigan cited Emmet County as being a primary place where you could start to enact zoning around data centers. It looked like the consultants at the meeting I attended in Bliss were recommending that data centers be classified as storage facilities. I missed the last meeting, so I apologize for that. But I would encourage you to take a step back and consult with your lawyers and consult and listen to the citizens, because there is one thing that citizens are united on, and it is their opposition to these data centers. And Emmet County is a prime place for developers to come in. And once they start coming in, you could be in the same position as Saline, as the other cities in Michigan, where these are overtaking their communities, depleting the land value, depleting the resources. The history here is incredible, and the future lies in your hands. So I hope that you take the time to consult and listen and govern as the citizens hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much. right behind Paul, yes.
You go.
I saw her.
No, you go ahead, guys. Ladies first.
Thank you. Thanks. My name is Beth Compton, and I also come from Center Township. And we're the smallest township in Emmet County. We have, I think, about 480 citizens, give or take. Our planning and zoning committee is you, the members of this committee. We're so small, we don't have a planning and zoning committee, as well as Bliss Township. And we trust you to do the best for our community, and that those decisions are in your hands. Center Township is just that. We are 20 to 25 miles from Mackinac, Sheboygan, Harbor Springs, Lansing, and Brutus. We have partners with Bliss Township, who also has you represent them. What happens in our townships, or any township or city in Emmet County, impacts all of us. Large AI data surveillance centers, those owned by large multi-million and billion-dollar businesses, should not be allowed in Emmet County or the state of Michigan. We are experiencing, like many townships and cities in our state, the big push to get data centers in place without guardrails by corporations who do not care about the impacts on our waters and lands. In Bliss and Center Townships, we have formed a group called BADC, or Bliss Against Data Centers, whose goal is to find and keep AI data centers from being built in our communities so we can maintain our pure Michigan waters and lands. At a couple of our meetings, we've just come up with maybe some recommendations from our group. And one of them, and I think you have worked on this, or maybe it already is enacted, I couldn't tell if it's been voted on, but to separate the large data centers and storage from the smaller groups, is that correct? That's a separate, the data centers for large and battery storage are separate now from the small, is that correct? No.
Not even working on anything, really.
Okay, all right. So that would be one of the recommendations. Form a committee with community members to address large data center facilities consisting of planning and zoning commissions, 1 or 2 citizens representing the people in their township or city. And that way you would get input on an ongoing basis. Invite experts to present current information on what is being done successfully in other cities and townships and how to prevent the data centers from being built. One of the other suggestions was, and I think John mentioned it, is really looking at what is going on in like Saline Township. I've driven by there, I go downstate, and it is devastating what has happened to the area. And I really recommend, if you haven't been to a site, please go and look at one and you'll have some idea. This is one data site, and you can have one every, I can't remember the dimensions now, but every so many, and it's like, anyway, so. It's and then also talk maybe to the citizens there who have to listen to the noise, who have to deal with the lights, who have to deal with the constant trucks coming and going all hours of the day and night. And then there's places around the country that are losing their water pressure. And I think even in Petoskey, there's some issues when you have more people coming into the area that your water pressure goes down. Well, if you have a well, you'll have no water. And wells are being contaminated, especially in Pennsylvania and some of the other sites that have been there for a while. We have the opportunity right now to include the information for the new Emmet County Master Plan before any damage can be done to our community's waterways and lands. The surveys that you've conducted show what the people want now and in the future for Emmet County, and that's no data centers. We are the protectors of our lands and waterways for now and for 7 generations to come. Thank you. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank Tammy and Laura, who came to one of our meetings to Bliss Township Hall, and they were wonderful. I mean, they were listening to what we had to say. They even varied what their presentation was going to be to address our concerns, which was the data centers. So I would like to thank you guys for both. And if you didn't have the answers, you got them for us, so thank you.
I would suggest anything you have, forward it to them, your suggestions and
Oh,
so
okay, I can
forth,
do that,
which
yeah.
maybe you already have that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Howard. Good evening, Mr. Chair, commissioners and staff, and of course
Good
the
evening.
public. Of course, the public here tonight. We don't want to forget them. I really appreciate the opportunity to make comments tonight. Currently, front yard setbacks in the B2 zone are 25 feet with building heights of 30 feet, regardless of location. In other words, B2 uses have been historically treated equal. These standards have been successfully used for many years, and now they are considered no longer acceptable in protecting our unique community character. What has changed? The proposed front yard setbacks of 300 feet and 200 feet for both commercial storage and self-storage along state highways seems onerous and unnecessary. The same holds true with proposed changes in the industrial district. There are other options which I heard suggested last week, but without a roundtable forum, such ideas cannot be explored. The height in B2 and I1 districts should remain at the current standard of 30 feet regardless of use. Certainly the fire chiefs raised valid concerns, but to restrict storage building heights and the number of floors is not how Emmet County has historically made land use decisions. It's been based on overall height. Zoning codes are the first layer of land development, which then requires strict compliance of other governmental agencies, such as fire codes, building codes, and health department codes, just to name a few. Zoning codes should not dictate fire codes, and fire codes should not dictate zoning codes. They are intended to layer on top of one another, not to override zoning. Hence, restricting self-storage to single use only is putting the cart before the horse. For example, any multi-floor self-storage building over 2,500 square feet requires a mandatory fire suppression system per NFPA 13 sprinkler systems. I am certain that our fire chiefs understand this. How about screening? Fences have historically been allowed for screening methods. However, with the proposed text, someone could place a solid fence 12 feet or higher in lieu of plantings. How does that protect our unique community character? Which this board states as a reason to impose such screening changes. Screening is best utilized when plantings are filtered using a variety of species while planning for a long-term outlook rather than instant gratification. Oversized planting requirements will cause premature, burdensome growth. This is a fact that was stated at the table by one of the commissioners based on their own experience. I also have my own experience with this, as I have planted literally thousands of trees in my developments over the years. I have learned what works and what does not. Still so much more to discuss. We have all put a lot of time into this topic, and last week was the first advertised public hearing. It's obvious the community input has real merit and should be considered with further discussion. Please do not let this invaluable stakeholders' input be tarnished by poor decisions in the 11th hour, literally. Respectfully, Paul and Annie Meridian. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Steve Hardesty, Emmet County resident of Bear Creek Township. I live there. I've had a business there now for over 20 years. First I want to say, I think you guys do an amazing job, and I know this ain't here about giving you guys, I'm sure you're not worried about getting a bunch of praise. I don't mean to step on all the concerns that everyone has here that seem very legitimate, and a lot of these do affect me and my business. But my biggest concern is the data centers and the potential for them slipping in. I appreciate the proposal adding what was added in. I think we have to also consider doing a moratorium on any data centers or Bitcoin or any crypto mining, any of those type of facilities. Do a moratorium on them and do some serious research, maybe setting up some kind of committee as Bliss was suggesting. One of my biggest concerns too, and I don't, it almost seems confrontational to bring it up, but I'm just I'm not making any accusations, but I just pray that nobody does any NDAs. When I hear about, you know, people doing like, oh, we can't discuss what we discussed, it's happening other places. That just really bothers citizens. And, you know, I'd be shocked if I heard anyone ever threw that out saying, oh, we signed an NDA, we can't discuss it. But I think you all know what I'm saying. But I want to be confrontational about it, and I'm not. I'm just saying the public is aware of it, you know, that, you know, other boards have signed NDAs and thrown that out there. So I appreciate everything that you've done so far, and I truly believe you got the best interests of everyone at heart, and thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Zach Stewart. I'm an attorney at Allward and Fisher in Traverse City. You guys received, I'm here on behalf of my client, Walker's Mountain View, LLC. You guys received my correspondence this afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Weinberg, for making sure that was made available to everybody in the commission. I apologize for that getting to you guys so late. I just wanted to hit a couple points in that correspondence since it did get to you at 4:30 this afternoon. Some of the things that I saw with respect to these changes that were made last week Thursday were with respect to, first of all, the screening standards. There is screening standards that are applicable to the commercial warehousing under 26.30 that seem to be less stringent than the screening standards for the self-storage facility under 26.42. Not sure if that was intentional or if that's, you know, something that was missed, but obviously I think that with respect to screening standards, commercial warehousing facility might need the equal amount of screening as what a self-storage facility would have. And that's in the identification there is that residential versus public road in the self-storage facility. Another point I think that's already been hit tonight is with respect to the fire lane requirements. That essentially adds to the setback requirements that are already in place with respect to the ordinances and creates more impervious surfaces and water runoff issues. The proposed definition of self-storage conflicts with 26.42E. The non-storage uses prohibited under 26.42E seems to be a little bit more stringent than the actual definition of a self-storage facility from Article 2. And I guess my suggestion on that would be that we have those more closely aligned with one another. And I think with respect to some of these last ones, the last one I will just kind of hit here is that, you know, I have made myself more aware of this process by watching some of the prior YouTube videos that are available, looking at your guys' prior meeting minutes, and then just being a part of the last two meetings. And I think that, at least from where I'm sitting, there, and at least on my end, and maybe some of the public, and I don't want to speak for everybody out there, it would make more sense if we could truly understand why these ordinance amendments are being proposed the way they are. I've heard discussions about the U-Haul facility that ended up pulling back its permitting. I heard some discussion from the commission, you know, saying that this was not the only reason. I've heard a lot of discussion from not only the commission but the public about how we are worried about data centers being able to come into the community and finding a loophole to be able to get in through our storage ordinances as they were before. And so I guess that my question before the commission that hopefully is answered tonight or answered before it goes to the county commissioners is what is the purpose or the reasoning behind these changes, and how does that protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community? And if it is designed to do that, and we come up with that statement, how do each of these changes rationally relate to protecting this health, safety, and welfare of the community? And I guess my thought on that also is that if this is truly about data centers, I think that there are less restrictive means to be able to achieve that goal. And I would suggest that the commission consider that as well. And I'll end with this. I thank everybody here. This is a thankless job. I've been to a number of planning commissions before. You guys are doing the due diligence that I wish more planning commissions that I get in front of and have an opportunity to speak in front of do, and I think that there is some merit to the fact that a lot of that is being done in front of the public, at least in the last week's meeting, so I appreciate that. The last thing I would say is I will reiterate what I heard already, was that we owe it to ourselves and our legacy that this is not tarnished by poor decisions in the 11th hour. I heard that quote actually earlier today in a YouTube video that I was watching from the Bear Creek Township, and is actually, I believe it was said by you, Mr. Bates, or Commissioner Bates, and so I like that a lot, and I'm going to steal that from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else on public comment?
My name is Doug Knowles, and I have a company, Green Valley Investments, that had the project that was halfway done when I came to the last meeting. I found out about this problem when I went to get a building permit and was denied. Thankfully, the board, I think, did the right thing and passed it last time so I could get my permit. No, I didn't get my permit?
Has nothing to do with the board.
Okay, with the zoning. Anyway, my concern is more the process in the fact that because we had competition come and look for a permit, and all of a sudden there was a couple entities that got up in arms about that, and my fear is what's next? What if a big major hotel chain comes in? Are we going to redo the whole master deed and all the zoning for the hotels industry? Are we going to do it for if a major boat dealer comes in or a mega farm comes in and is going to take over the farming in our area? That concerns me a lot, just because we're worried about some competition. And I just hope that the board would take that in consideration when making these decisions. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, I was just jotting notes, go ahead.
Nate Hall, it's been hard for me to sit back the last few meetings and to think that this journey started about 18 months ago for me. And I know it's please correct me, 9 months ago that the storage, I felt that it was an outdated ordinance and needed to be looked at. But that was all up to you, and you're all independent thinkers. So it's really hard for me to think that this has just been a sham that was just pulled off in the last short time, because the townships have been notified 2 times minimum. I think it's been advertised, and this board has been, whether even I agree, and you haven't even taken into some of what I thought was a good recommendation, but I respect that at the end of the day. But this has not been, it has been open to the public, and I have sat through, and you guys can attest, I maybe have missed maybe a meeting, maybe 2, and you guys have always given the opportunity for the public to talk. And I do appreciate that, but it is hard to think that this didn't just happen. This has been going on for months and months, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate listening to Paul and Mr. Knowles, and everyone has valid points, but you guys have done. I don't think that some people in this room understand the amount of work that has gone into this. It cannot be understated. So I did want to give you guys credit for that, and it's hard for me to listen to that this has just been a very quick process, because you guys have been hammering on this for a long time, trying to meet that deadline, which was set by September 1st, to be fair for all the businesses. So I just appreciate the opportunity for you guys that over the last year have allowed everyone, such as myself, to talk and have my time. So thank you.
Thank you. Short for you.
Tana Baldwin. So I have also been here for many months listening to this. And, you know, as somebody who lives just outside of where the business areas are, one of the things that myself and all of my neighbors are concerned about is business pushing out to where it doesn't belong, which is on top of where we live. And one of the issues that happened that even caused you to start discussing this was what appropriate use for that business frontage was. And there are businesses that require being right there on top of the road where they can be easily accessed and have heavy traffic. And we've been trying to say all along that that's not what this is. This takes up a lot of space, and it's putting it someplace where there is a better legitimate use for that type of space. And I think that goes back to good planning. And Paul asked what has changed. Well, if you look at some of the things we've done in the past, we find a whole bunch of things have changed. We look at things where we should have had access roads, like along 31 North, in order to not have accidents at places like Culver's. Lots of different things have happened as we've started to build up and build up. And now we need to look at it a little bit differently and make good decisions about what types of things belong where. So that's one of the things I think that is different that we're trying to do now. And in 9 months, everybody talked, and we went back and forth on that. And you made a compromise last time that let people in business, but accommodated current uses. So that was a compromise that actually was more lenient than what had been created before that, from my understanding. So I'm not sure why we suddenly have everybody coming out of the woodwork when this has been working people have been working on this for so long. As to the data centers, I know we talked about that last time. Did that amendment not get in? Nothing about that got in to make sure that was not a definition? I did not see that in what we did, so I thought that was something people wanted to do, but maybe it wasn't. So I would encourage you to do that so that we make sure we keep that as something separate to be addressed at a later date. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else on this case this evening? Yes, sir.
Good evening, members of the Emmet County Planning Commission. My name is Al Walsh. I'm the Fire Chief, Resort Bear Creek Fire Department, also the President of the Emmet County Fire Association. Respectfully ask that sections 26.30 and 26.42 be amended to also prohibit mezzanine storage. This was included in my original letter, but unfortunately it appears that this may have gotten overlooked. I would ask that the language clearly prohibits both second story storage and mezzanine storage. Both create additional challenges and risks to firefighters during a fire or emergency. Our goal is simple: to keep these facilities at ground level and reduce the unnecessary risk of our firefighters and the public. Each of you have the opportunity tonight to make that decision and could ultimately save lives. I respectfully ask that you consider this long-term public safety implementation and adopt this language. I would also like to see, and maybe it's there and I might not understand it, that it's both in the B2 and the industrial district. Another couple of comments I'd like to make that I heard: not all fire departments in Emmet County follow the IFC. There's only 2 fire departments in Emmet County that have adopted the IFC. All the other fire departments do not have the IFC to follow. So they're kind of out on their own. Resort Bear Creek and the city of Petoskey are the only 2 that follow the IFC. So some of these requirements that we are asking to be put into this is to help those fire departments that do not have those codes that they can rely on. Another thing, we cannot, and I repeat, we cannot change something that's not in the fire code. An example is the second floor storage. The comment was made, well, they'll make that change when the fire department does a review. We do not have anything that can stop that. You guys have the authority to put that in this zoning. Second thing is, comment was made about sprinkler systems. 100% agree, these buildings would be fully sprinkled. But if you happen to look, U-Haul, of all companies, had a fire in Milwaukee, Wisconsin recently, and the fire sprinkler system did not go off and did not put out that fire. It was delayed for some reason for not going off. These are just one example of why we're asking to have these to limited on height and limited on second floor storage. You have, and I know this was brought up before by someone, you have 300 units, they're individual units, and then each one of those units do not have a sprinkler head in them. They're locked, we have no access to them, and you have no idea what is stored in those units. Somebody made the comment, well, you got a hotel, you got a 4-story hotel, and it's a fully express building. I can pretty much tell you what's in that room in that hotel, and there's 2 or 3 sprinkler heads in there. I do not know what's in any of these storage units that we have around our county, nor do you. They can have anything from lithium-ion batteries to car parts to gasoline to 1,000 gallons of propane sitting in there. It's a danger to us as firefighters going in there at the 11th hour. So I ask you to look at that and consider it, and I thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Al. Okay, anyone else comments this evening? Okay, thank you all. Okay, this time, bring it back up here. Put away here. Open for commissioners' discussion here on this amendment. We've had multiple things come in since Thursday. Gone through, my printer's printed off lots of copies here. I got a couple, 3 extras here, but there's lots of reading. So anybody got any comments of what was redlined in here added to our draft?
Mr. Chair,
Supplement. Go ahead.
if I may, just, this was brought up in several public comments. You know, we're not meant to engage in a back and forth during comments, but it was mentioned several times. The commercial storage facility / warehousing definition under Article 2 has proposed additional language that reads as follows. Each commercial storage facility or warehouse may include a maximum of 3 loading docks and/or truck wells in total. Battery energy storage systems and data centers are expressly excluded from this definition. So, yeah, it's up there on the screen there. So, just to, while we don't have a definition of data center, and we might consider expanding what this particular language says, just to be clear, that has been added to this definition.
Good point, Brent.
Yeah, and then the other question that was brought up was about the ownership or rent of sort of condominium style buildings, and under self-storage facility and definitions, this was another input that was discussed. We did amend that definition in this revised proposal to say a building or group of buildings containing individually leased or owned storage. The or owned is new. Units, lockers, or spaces that are rented or sold directly to individuals. So this was brought up in the event that units maybe had a tax ID number or condominiumized or something of that nature, to try to encompass that. So I did want to call attention to that and thank staff for including that language. The other point that's been made a couple different ways was about the potentially unintentional, more intense screening requirement in 26.42 for self-storage as compared to 26.30. If it is less strict in 26.3, and I could see how it could be read that way, I think, based on the feedback provided and the conversation, I would propose including that language, G1, also in 26.3 to maintain consistency there. We specifically called out loading docks and overhead doors and outdoor storage areas, and did not specifically call out that all storage buildings shall be fully obscured from view from public roads or any residential uses on adjacent parcels with a continuous visual screen. So, I do think, depending on what my fellow commissioners think, I do think that input has been received loud and clear, and I do think probably be appropriate to borrow that language from G1 and G2, either at the 8-foot or 12-foot on G2 into 26.3. It could either become the new G1 or become probably a new G1 so that the permitted screening feature still follows. Does that make sense?
I'm with you.
Okay.
G1, sir. Put it in 26.3.3.
Yeah, and
under G1.
it could be G1, it could just be it could be a G1C, and it could just have that language. We don't have the specific buildings, outdoor storage called out in 26.42 specifically, since there's no outdoor storage in that category. So I think it would just make sense to include that. Otherwise, I felt that the revised language provided by staff captured I thought it captured honestly very effectively what we discussed in the last meeting.
Mr. Chair, can we just clarify, did you just require a continuous visual screen for commercial storage and warehousing? Is that what you did? You took the because there's G1 in both 26.42 and 26.30. So you're asking that we apply the 26.42 G1 that's requiring buildings to be fully obscured with a continuous visual string from public roads and residential uses, and apply that also to commercial storage facilities so they're equally restrictive? Is that what you?
That is what I was trying to adopt. Basically, that was a point that's been brought up in writing and in comments that perhaps we unintentionally made 26.42 more restrictive for a less intense use.
While we're on that screen issue, of course, I was not here last month. I was working, restoring power for people. But anyways, the part about the solid privacy fencing and C on that.
C, which one?
26.42, I believe it's in 26.3.
Under the permitted screening features?
Correct.
Okay.
Back June, I wasn't here in July, it's August now. I had some reservation about the solid privacy fence. I think the natural screenings work better than whether it be a vinyl fence, a board fence, or however, I think those can be not what we're looking for in my thought patterns. So if we're on that screening issue, I personally don't like that. Just a comment.
So preference to leave A, B, and D staggered, existing or proposed buildings, but not solid privacy fence.
That's one thing I think we should work through. Fencing. But that, we'll go to any other comments on things here. That was touched. I guess I can kind of start where I went through several things. There again, we've had multiple meetings. I know we started in January. We've gone through several months there back in the middle part of the winter and so forth. You know, we're trying to get some stuff going. And so some meets have kind of come back, look back to the minutes, May, June, July here, we've started, there's been lots of comments, we've had some good community engagement. Anyways, so for me, until it really got to the bones of this, and we got it this August, you know, the other night, and then we made some significant changes in my opinion, and I was pointing that out Thursday night. There's some big changes, like the building heights. And I can respect Al's opinion and firefighters' opinions and so forth. The 1-story, 20 feet height, 10,000 square feet. The setbacks around buildings, non-conformities that are being, this is a pretty big swing differently than what we had in front of us on August the 7th, to some changes in my mind. And so I think that it should be probably, and this is just opinion, re-advertised. It's kind of like the first public hearing, if I'm getting this correctly. Advertised back to the townships with, say, if this is the draft that we're kind of looking at, of course, the legal counsel hasn't totally said, yeah, this would fly. We should go back to some kinds. This is affecting a lot of property owners. Bear Creek Township, big time. And I'm just leaning towards that. There's been a lot of time and effort. And to your point, Brian, the other night we don't want to punt. Yeah, we might not want to punt. We might want to go for 2 points rather than 1 point on this too, on extra points. So I guess we can use that scenario to get it right. That's where I'm at with it. In public input, to me, taxpayers, stakeholders, citizens of all of Emmet County can weigh in on this. It's kind of, I think we need to, like I stated again, get it right. So that's my comments on it. I think, I know there's been lots of time and effort, energy, but I've read this over, put lots of reading time into it, and those are some points that that I got some concerns. The look at the topography, or not topography, but the aerial up there. I look at that with property lines. There's multiple properties on that corridor up there. There are 260, 270, 280 that are, if we have to repurpose to some public comments, and I've already thought about it, I'm not just using the public comment, but some of those are non-conforming. If we're gonna to the point tonight of revitalize or redo something, that project might stall. We might have a vacant piece or a building that's not right. I'm all for making things look good. I think we can make things look good. The other thing, wasn't here. I'm not a fan of the 300-foot setback. I think it's too far. We originally talked about, I think I was into like what, 100. If I look back on minutes, but 300 we're extending out quite a ways. So maybe we need to take a little more time on it.
Just a question for you,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. You just, in those comments, referenced a specific project up there and properties on that corridor there.
Yeah.
What project is up there and which corridor?
I shouldn't say project. A corridor, the 31 corridor north.
Like north?
From Pickerel Lake Road north to the Sacramentines. That's kind of the B2 corridor, Bear Creek Township. I think that's what a lot of this is, we've been looking at on the aerials, if I'm not staying. We're looking at county-wide, but that area up there eliminates a lot of parcels in the B2 area for that type of developments.
So that's
could
the
be
section,
repurposed.
That's the section where you said you checked a lot of them were 260 to 280 deep.
Well, kind of just, I don't have a exact measurement on my phone, but they're narrow lots in there.
And then which was
depth-wise.
the project you were talking about would revitalize the area?
I'm just saying an example. Say, the other night, I think something was talked about, I think John mentioned the old bakery building. That's pretty narrow back there. What if they moved out tomorrow? I'm just throwing that out there for comments.
Okay.
Of buildings that it could be, I don't know, made into something, so. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you weren't referencing a specific
No,
project.
no, not at all, not at all. Not at all.
I got a couple
That
comments.
just kind of just my look at some of it, the B2s and the areas, but go ahead.
Okay, so a couple things that comes to my mind.
One sec, because I have no skin in the game here. That's where.
Oh, I'm not
you're
suggesting
going
you
with
do.
it. I have no interest in anything here. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's all right. A couple things that comes to my mind. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, thank you. As I sit back and listen to, by the way, I appreciate the comments, especially tonight. There are 7 reoccurring concerns that I hear from the public. First of all, I'm not with you on delaying this anymore yet. I'm not against it, but I'm not with you on that. So, number 1, we hear more and more of the 300-foot setbacks. I can see a concern of that developing a nonconformity issue. The other concern is a 25-foot fire lane. The third concern are data centers. The fourth concern that I've heard over and over is noise and truck traffic. I've heard that several times. One of the other concerns is kind of more of a, it's been mentioned a couple times, and then there's been maybe some insinuendos out there about us being transparent. So I think transparency is a concern for everybody. And along with that comes with the health, safety, and welfare. For instance, I heard, I believe it was tonight, that, the question is, why are we doing this? Is it addressing and improving health, safety, and welfare, or is it because a couple people wanted to eliminate the competition? Sometimes I have a hard time understanding why that question is, because we've had many conversations on health and safety, whether it's the highways, the setbacks, the truck traffic, the noise, and the welfare. So that's been a lot of conversation. And by this board, it's been very little conversation about anti-business, anti-growth. I haven't heard any of us say that. And then Tanya brought this up. I believe she's brought it up a couple different times with other people, but what is best for those zones? And one of my concerns is we have B2 there that could offer us a variety of businesses in the future. Different benefits for the community. As opposed to having a B2 corridor full of large warehouses and motor freight terminals as we speak. And then last but not least is the fire safety. I don't think anybody in this room can legitimately say to me that I don't have our first responders' concerns at heart. So I do believe that there are some building codes and fire codes that are already in play, but I think we do really need to think about some of the issues. So to address all those concerns, I think we should talk about that 300-foot setback and why it's there.
Secondly, I would like to discuss a little bit tonight on the height and size restrictions that we're putting into an industrial zone for this particular purpose, as opposed to what's there for other industrial uses. I think we need to clarify that. And I'm asking for you to clarify it for me and remind me why we did that. And if I'm confused, there might be somebody else in the audience that's a little confused about it. So why we're making this tonight, you know, we sat here till almost midnight last week. We've had many nights where we're here till 11 o'clock. And I think we need to, without sounding more morbid here, let's cut to the bone here and start discussing some of the reasons why we came to those, so we can address some of our concerns out here. I really feel that we've heard from both sides of this, especially in the last 2-3 months. I'm not really hearing anything new from either side. It's always the setback, it's the land take, it's what the use is for. And I do feel that there's storage unit owners out there that would work with each other, much like my perception is the breweries do around here. I mean, they all seem to support each other. So those are my thoughts to kick this off. I think we can address many of these quickly and precisely tonight if we just get at it.
I think that's extremely well said. Your final point is perhaps, for me, the most salient, which is the longer we've been in this process, the more we've heard the same points. There's not new information coming. Tweaking definitions and tweaking the text is a dynamic conversation, but the concerns being raised and the ideas are pretty consistent. If anything, the larger shift in the last handful of months has been an emphasis on the health, safety, and welfare, but whereas I saw the conversation on health, safety, and welfare being largely focused on adjacent property owners, potential residences, adjacent business owners, which is where I think some of those setbacks and things came from in the first place. In the last 2 months, a lot of that health, safety, and welfare has taken more specific focus in terms and a higher degree of urgency around fire safety with significant input from the firefighting professionals in our community. And I think that's where some of the language on fire lanes and height restrictions, et cetera, has come from. And so I think health, safety, and welfare has been at the forefront of all of this. I want to echo the transparency piece in terms of competition. That's not been a topic in this, that we've had. We don't really regulate competition or that type of a thing. It's not something we do. But there's one other piece, Mr. Gooding, that I've brought up before and I want to reiterate, which is we're in the midst of the master plan conversation for Emmet County. Bear Creek Township which has been centered to this, is in their master plan sort of home stretch. And a lot of the dialogue here has been about B2 versus industrial and now versus in the future. And I'm firmly of the persuasion that our current perceived lack of available industrial is not a reason to change our ordinance, to contort ourselves to match a seeming shortage of supply. The lack of industrial zoned land is something that our master plan and all master plans are going to have to address. And that's a much bigger conversation than storage, but it's not unrelated to this conversation. Similarly, when we're looking ahead, I'm extremely concerned about putting something somewhere now that 5, 10, 20 years from now looks short-sighted. There's so many uses that some property might be vacant now and might be good as storage units now, but that use could change, and I would be concerned that we're doing our long-term planning, what we're charged to do, a disservice by putting things in zones right now where there's a better use for that spot, even if that use doesn't exist right now. So that question of what is best for use for those zones, I think is a really appropriate question. As far as the 300-foot setback, the conversation around setbacks was discussed at length with legal counsel when we were discussing the concept of an overlay district. The overlay district seemed like a very attractive option at the time that was presented. My understanding at that time was that that was a direction we would be exploring. At the next meeting, that direction was nowhere to be found, but the setback concept existed. I could be wrong here, but my understanding was that implementing an overlay district was going to be a potentially more complex process in terms of how and where that's applied, which townships, which roads, etc. So the setback framework was offered as an alternative to the overlay district. Following that conversation on the setback conversation instead of the overlay district, there was an opportunity for planning commissioners to visit a site, part of a PUD, not B2 or industrial, that was both a business in the front, storage facility, portable storage unit lot in the back, which met the commercial outdoor storage concept. And that site visit included markers on the road of 100, 200, 300 foot from the right-of-way, from a state highway, to better grasp what we were discussing, what we were potentially agreeing to or not agreeing to. So I don't see this. Some of the comments and some of the language suggest that we perhaps haphazardly patched a couple of ideas together, and that's certainly not how it's felt from my perspective. We could debate the merits of where these things have come from, or what we think or what we see, but much of this, a lot of this, has been informed by examples, experience. Staff has done a tremendous job putting together theoretical uses, not theoretical uses, but existing and proposed storage uses under different versions of proposed text amendments to see how existing or proposed developments would or would not comply with what we're discussing, which I also have found to be extremely helpful to shape this conversation. So I don't think that this has been rushed together in the way that some folks may feel that it has been. It hasn't. No part of this process has felt rushed, sitting and talking about it. My concern from the get-go around a deferral or a moratorium was that it would be unfair to existing stakeholders or future stakeholders of whom we did not know, that if we put a pause on this for any period of time, they would not have the ability to exercise their property rights to develop their parcel. That is in the minutes. That is my concern from the get-go. This is the direction we've gone, and so my persuasion is that we owe it to ourselves and those stakeholders who are waiting to make sure that we see this through as efficiently as possible, because it is not lost on me that the property owners, the stakeholders of Emmet County, have lost in almost an entire construction season so that we could discuss this. So I'm not interested in rushing this for the sake of rushing it. I'm interested in us seeing this through to make sure that stakeholders gain the ability to develop their properties as as we see fit.
Okay?
May I speak?
Sure.
The other thing that I think we should understand is we're not a township board here. We have to be interested in what's good for the county as a whole. Mr. Eby, although not here tonight, he brought up the fact that there were some things that would be restrictive in Maple River Township. And I think we adjusted things to accommodate those concerns. I'm afraid that we're gonna be reactionary to a group of business owners that are just on that 31 corridor, and then we are forgetting the outlying districts. And again, I just don't believe that we are that way, and I don't think we should be that way, but I think we gotta keep in mind that we're a county board, and our decisions are affecting everyone. So,
You know, I'll comment on that if that was.
I wasn't calling you out.
No, I know, but we have a duty to the county, I totally agree, 100%. But we have duty to our areas that we're all a part of too. So if that was meant that.
Oh, I wasn't.
I know you weren't, but I just addressing the comment. But, and I don't think we're by no means rushing this through, Brian, either.
I think that what I was trying to address is,
Yeah.
we've heard several different times that we're listening to, a small group of business owners that brought this forth in the beginning to eliminate competition. I think it was highlighted that we may have some archaic zoning ordinances that, and that's why we addressed it, at least that's what's in my mind. However, we have to be careful not to go too far the other way and listening to a few on the other side. One of the things that I'm concerned about is that we are worried about some people making money and some people not making money. That shouldn't be our concern. What we should be concerned is that we're not hurting some business owners. And I think we addressed that at the last meeting when it was brought up that some of these things were on, a couple of these projects were on hold. I think we did a good job listening to that. So again, I think that we can address tonight the setback problem, the fire lane issue, the data center issue. I think we can hit a lot of them. And the noise and truck and traffic. I think there's a lot of things that we can address. And what's the reason for this? Is it health, safety, and welfare? Well, I would say that we have addressed that in our conversations. Maybe we didn't put it in our text and put it right out in black and white, but some of the reasons, why didn't we want motor freight and why did we define motor freight is because it doesn't belong in most people's minds that I hear in a place that's closer to residential. Now, I can think of several companies that are industrial zoned that have, I'm sure they're over 30 feet, but maybe I just don't know my measurements, but they're there. And if they're industrial there, maybe that's what we gotta look at is, what's the point if we've already got an industrial zones with that kind of a setback and that kind of height limitation? So, educate me if I'm wrong.
And into your comment, motor freight, now, we did put that into.
Yeah, that's my point. We did address that, and the reason for that was health, safety, welfare of the community, right?
Yep.
So,
On the health, safety, welfare section and the fire section, making sure that we're making rules that make sense for the entire county. The public comment at the end from fire chief highlighted that only Resort Bear Creek and the city of Petoskey have adopted the International Fire Code. I understand that there's concern that zoning and fire codes are dictating each other, but if the entire rest of Emmet County, besides Resort Bear Creek and the city of Petoskey, do not have a fire code, then I would be exceptionally concerned for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of everywhere else if we don't include some of the recommendations of the fire chief.
I would concur with that statement.
In fact, perhaps more than anything, that might be our most important charge in this conversation, is to make sure that everyone, regardless of township, is provided a safe environment to operate. And this isn't a hypothetical, right? We had a storage unit fire in this county in the last 12 months.
So I've spoke, Brian spoke, you spoke. How about the rest of us? What are we thinking? How can we get this moved forward in one direction or the other tonight, before midnight?
Julie, got anything?
Yeah, well, it goes back to, I think, Mr. Gooding, Commissioner Gooding talked about, starting with the site, the 300 foot setback, and Brian gave a nice summary of where we started out, and I think that was very helpful, because it has been a while, and it's nice to know where we started from and how we ended up here. And the 300 foot setback along the state highway was predicated by the corridor studies that have been done on 31, and the need to have something up front and center that represents the community other than a storage facility. And 300 feet was the amount of distance that it would take to have another business set in front. So that was, it wasn't just a random number pulled out of the sky, and it does, unfortunately, when, from the time, the cavemen invented zoning, whenever the standards changed, whether it was because of fire safety or because of changing demographics or changing industries, somebody gets caught in the transition period and says, whoa, wait a minute, now I'm going to be non-conforming. And and you can say, well, we'll just stick with the old one, and then you won't have the community going forward. That, I think, is the reason that we're doing the master plan and doing the zoning. So as long as we can remember and speak clearly about what our vision is and why we are doing things, then hopefully the public will recognize that we're trying to accommodate the community, the developers, and everyone, essentially.
I certainly appreciate you reminding me about that portion of that. It kind of brings a little more perspective on the subject.
Under 300 feet, yeah.
Yeah, on the 300 feet. Now, I can certainly understand. I remember a couple county commissioner board meetings ago, we had the natural gas pipeline come in and give us a presentation. And I know that they are talking about a 75-foot right-of-way on people's property that they wanted to impose. And, I sit there and I think about my property. I'd be pretty upset if that's half my front yard or over half my front yard that I can't ever build on. So I can sympathize with what some of these people are saying here too. So I just want to make sure that the community sees us discuss this and take all that into consideration. And again, it's not just because we don't like, or I don't like, or Chuck doesn't like the look of something, because that's not what it's about either. My taste is probably going to be a lot different than Julie's. So we have to worry specifically about health, safety, welfare, and how it affects the community.
Okay. Chuck, do you have any comments this evening on anything that we've
Yeah.
discussed or what you've gone through in your packet?
I'll take about 3 minutes and weigh in on
Okay.
some of my ideas. In our 5-page packet on page 1, in paragraph 3, section 22.06.2, it talks about adding indoor lighting enforcement. I talked about this at the last meeting. I'm not in favor of policing indoor lighting. On the second page, it talks about limiting 3 loading docks to 3 per building. I'm not in favor of that limit.
Wait a minute, would you repeat
Where
that
are you
again?
at, Chuck?
That's on page 2, under commercial storage facility warehousing.
That'd be the blue addition under definitions.
Okay, so please reiterate your concern here so I understand it.
I'm not in favor of limiting only 3 loading docks for a building.
But I don't think that's what we did. That was, if I recall, that was for a facility. So you could have 3 on a building, or you could have 3 buildings with each having a loading dock on that building. Total of 3. Is that the way I?
Yeah, that's correct.
So you could have 5 buildings and 3 of them with truck bays and loading docks, and that's what would differentiate a motor
Freight terminal.
Which is industrial.
Industrial.
Okay, moving on to page 3, Article 26, distance to water bodies. Storage and warehousing uses shall not occupy property bordering lakes or rivers. And I don't think that's reasonable. I think we should have a reasonable setback, which I would suggest would be 200 feet. Moving down to paragraph B, sentence 3, buildings shall be no greater than 1 story. I'm in agreement with that for firefighting reasons, and no greater than 20 feet. I said at the last meeting, I'd like to see that increase to 24 feet, because I think there's some things that are stored or that would need the higher height. moving on.
So in C, you're saying keep at 1 story, this is just your thought, but increase that to 24 feet?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
What's your thought?
The very next sentence down under D, total floor area of each building should be no greater than 10,000 square feet. I'm in favor of increasing that to 20,000 feet. And then moving down to B, under industrial district, for uses fronting or in vicinity of a state highway, buildings and outdoor storage areas shall be set back a minimum of 300 feet from the state right-of-way line. I'm not in favor of that. I think 150 feet plus the road right-of-way, which is 70 or 60 feet on a state highway, that would give you 210 feet. I think that's more than adequate. Moving down to the bottom of the page under outdoor storage and screening, I'm not in favor of requiring businesses to screen everything, every doorway or every overhead door or loading dock that's larger than 80 square feet. There's a big continuous visual screen. I think that's a little bit creates a hardship on a business.
You want any screening there, Chuck, or non-continuous or no screening whatsoever?
I'm not,
That's my question.
I don't want to require any screening. I think it's nice if people on their own decide to plant some trees between the highway and their buildings, natural screening. But I'm concerned that the county is going to end up with huge walls trying to hide every building that's commercial. And when it comes to trees, I don't think it's a good idea to force people to transplant trees that are 12 to 14 feet high to meet that requirement. Trees take a long time to grow. Even evergreen trees take at least 7 or 8 years, probably more like 10 to get up to that height. It doesn't work well to plant large trees to try to transplant them. They don't usually survive very well. And then down below, under permitted, on paragraph 3, on page 4, permitted screening features, a minimum of 2 rows of staggered and closely planted evergreen trees. I've talked about this before. I'd like to see those rows described, how many feet apart they should be, how close the trees should be. And down there, just a little ways under solid privacy fence. I'm not in favor of forcing people to build solid walls to hide buildings.
Anything else?
I'm okay with the fire code, although I think that could be reduced down, the fire lanes from 25 feet down to 20 feet. 20 feet would be more than plenty of clearance for 2 large trucks to pass each other in that area. Moving down to the bottom of the page, on page 4, all storage buildings shall be fully obscured from view from public roads. I don't know why we have this philosophy of we have to hide all our buildings behind some kind of a screen or a wall. If I don't like to look at a certain object, I just don't look at it.
Where are you at on G?
I was on page 4,
Yep.
near the bottom,
Screening?
on sentence, screening under number 1.
You want it to all just go away?
I think that's a little bit unreasonable. Moving on to page 5, the last page. Section 26.09, home-based commercial storage building. Sentence number 1 says storage use only. No sales or servicing, self-storage facilities or commercial warehousing should be permitted. To me, that would kind of prohibit private citizens working on a project. Say they have an old car, they want to improve it a little bit, do some things to it that would keep them from working on it. And then under sentence number 3, site size, the minimum property size should be 10 acres or larger by description. I think 4 acres would be more reasonable. Sentence number 4, setbacks. Buildings used for home-based commercial storage shall be set back at a minimum of 50 feet from all property lines and shall be set back a minimum of 100 feet from existing off-premise dwellings. I think that's excessive. I think 40 feet would be plenty.
For which one? Both, or just 40 feet from property lines, or 40 feet from existing off-premise, or 40 feet?
40 feet from existing off-premise dwellings.
So
Both those 40, 50, and 100 switch both to 40?
if it's 50 feet from the property line, unless the off-premise dwelling is on the other person's property, you'd have at least 50 feet.
Right.
You follow?
No, I don't.
So that,
I'm in favor of changing that 100 feet to 40 feet.
that would be superseded by the previous section. Right, because this language we reviewed, I believe it was 3 months ago, that there was a request to ensure that existing off-premise dwellings were not, say a property owner lived on the front of their property and put the storage units on the very back of their property, their setback could be such that their storage unit facility is closer to their neighbor than to their house. So that's why
We created that.
that it was 50 feet from the property line, but then 100 feet from an existing off-premise dwelling if one exists at the time. So it's basically 50 plus 50. So if you're 50 feet from the property line, you're by default at least 50 feet from the off-premise dwelling. Should there be a 0 setback, if they would meet the standard setback, you'd be at least 60. So you're saying 40 feet from the property line?
No, I'm just in favor of that 100 feet from existing off-premise dwellings. I'm in favor of changing that to 40 feet.
Copy that.
And then the last one I have, in the very next paragraph, 5, building limitations. 1 additional building up to the maximum size allowable by section 22.01.1.A.4 may be permitted on sites of 20 acres or more. I'd like to reduce that 20 acres down to 10 acres. I think that'd be more reasonable.
So 4 acres for the first, 10 acres for the second, and did you want to, okay.
And then, that is all I have. Thank you.
Just a quick comment, Chuck, I appreciate the concern about trees. I think a lot of us here have planted trees and seen trees planted poorly or properly, but this is a section of the ordinance that we have revisited and updated over the years. Just for those following along, under 3 permitted screening features, the rows of staggered and closely planted evergreen trees with species, minimum size, maximum spacing, and planting plan shall be consistent with provisions of section 22.04.3. It's been the practice of this board as much as possible to reference other sections of our ordinance to maintain consistency. 22.04.3 is a section titled Plant Materials, which does provide a description of the general plant types for trees and shrubs, the maximum spacing in single groupings or in row, the minimum allowable size by height, caliper, and spacing, and then definitions of example species for each category of plant type with the minimum spacing specified, along with a list of prohibited trees to ensure, success in terms of a plant stand establishment. So,
Doesn't it say something about dictated by size and spacing, or by
yeah, yep.
by the
Yeah, so
species?
yep. So it's
that's what's
basically
covered
a
there.
species matrix of size and
Correct.
style.
Yep. That's covered in that.
All right,
I
so
thought so, too.
Chuck, just to clarify, are you proposing the screening requirements for this text amendment would be different than the screening the screening matrix in 22.04.3?
I would just like to have it spelled out in this document.
Would you like to, I think by referencing section 22.04.3,
That's spelling it out.
And that's
because the
3
reference is
pages.
back, so you have to go back to that. Otherwise, we'd be adding 3 points to it. That's why we wrote it, or the staff provided that section number. As Brian just read that. So it references that section, so if you plan on, correct me if I'm wrong, a 6-foot spruce is gonna tell what spacing and caliper and how far. It has to be, if you plant a 3-footer, it might be 5'6", and a 6-footer might be 7'6", for example. So that's referenced to your point. You follow that?
Yes, I do. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
Chuck, just to clarify on the 26.3 adjustments, you're good with no greater than 1 story. Thursday, you wanted to cap it at 22 feet. Today, you'd like that to be 24 feet.
I changed my mind. I think 24 feet would be more reasonable.
And is that informed by?
Keep it in
anything?
mind, the rest of the county is 30 feet.
Sure.
But I am in favor of keeping the storage buildings to 1 story.
Copy that. And then for the floor area, proposing to increase it from 10,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. Any specific reason?
Well, storage buildings by their nature take a lot of space to store things. I think the 100-foot by 100-foot building would probably not be big enough in some cases for large items. Yeah, I would just like to allow bigger buildings.
And did you want, just to be clear, this restriction here is just for the B2 district?
That was gonna be my next
Did you
question.
want the bigger buildings for B2 and industrial, or just, did you just want it to be technically feasible within Emmet County?
I would say that would be my opinion for both districts.
Okay. And the fire chief
Okay.
had requested a cap at 10,000 square feet, and you would like to double that.
Yes.
Got it.
Kelly?
Okay.
Jenny?
Basically, everything's been pretty well laid out and has been said, okay? We've heard pros and cons. We're too restrictive, we're not restrictive enough. The one thing I think was pretty universal is we live in an area that is a great area to live in, and it's created a lot of demand. And we're going to see more facilities being built. And all we're trying to do is monitor and do it the best way we see fit. I come from a community that is a beautiful little community that created a lot of demand. And because the zoning was not there, a lot of motels were needed, and motels went in. And now you come into Mackinac City, you can drive quite a ways and not even know we're on the lake until the city got involved. And now, and restricted how many you can have, how high it can go. And it's been brought up. We need the facilities, but there's a place for them, and there should be constraints on them. I do have some concerns, not quite like, more along the lines, and it was brought up about the safety issues that we should take into account for fire safety. I also wonder about, and I think this should move along. I think we've got a good plan. I really do. Is it perfect? No. No, but I think it's a pretty doggone decent plan. And, but I do wonder if legal counsel should take a look at what we've done, and we should also take into account, the chief's recommendations. That's what I looked up.
I've just been listening. We've had a good conversation tonight. Heard a lot of good feedback. As Kelly said, I do hear that too. We're too restrictive. We're not restrictive enough. I feel like it kind of it has teeter-tottered as we've gone along. Starting this process, I appreciate that you shared the beginnings of this. We have spent a lot of time on it, and it has progressed steadily. I was probably, and still am, on the side of, if we go down this road, I think we started this because there were storage uses that we saw, uses that we had already that we could see coming, that we knew were out there in the world already, that our ordinance probably didn't address. And I think for me, that was the real reason we took on this, that just to take a second look and say, okay, we know that there's potentially bigger, more robust storage uses out there, different types that we hadn't really thought about before. Let's make sure our ordinance still fits with what could potentially come along. My intent with this was not to be more restrictive of storage uses. I think Chuck gave some really great changes, amendments to this draft. I would largely support most of them, if not all of them, and then probably even some additional ones to be less restrictive. I think we're walking a fine line between trying to accommodate businesses. There's a business model that's out there, but still respecting the health, safety, welfare, and response from our fire departments. I totally understand that. It feels a little bit though that we're trying to make storage not storage. And I don't know if we can do that. It's always going to be storage. Unpopular opinion, I suppose, but, my question, I think, if I may, for staff and where we're kind of going with this, I think, to bring something new to the table. And I apologize that I don't have this. I was trying to look through my notes, and you don't have to get it to me right now if you don't have it handy, but last Thursday was a public hearing, and we usually typically notice all of the townships and send out the language to them. I was curious which townships we had heard back from, who had actually given us a response. And it just goes kind of to some of the earlier comments about feedback we've received, and if, based on the comments that we have received and what we noticed to them, that if we've given, thank you so much. Okay, that's what I had thought, Maple River, Redmond, and then Bear Creek Township. I was just, double checking that there weren't other ones.
Another slide.
Littlefield, at the meeting last week, I provided you with their,
that's the fire department.
No, the township board
was
had
their-
heard from their constituents and they provided a letter that I printed.
It was not their position, it was just them relaying what they heard.
There's been a lot, yes, there's been a lot. Okay, and so definitely a few that we haven't heard from. I don't know that we wanna, how significant that is to make sure we get maybe a little bit more response from the townships.
Jen, you made this comment before, and I just want to make sure I understand. You made it again this evening, that, I forget exactly how you said it, but that we're making storage uses not storage uses? Or what was that? I wanted to just understand that better.
Sure, that, I understand, it really comes down to the fire hazard that could potentially exist. That whether it's a 10,000 square foot building or a 20,000 square foot building, it's still going to be storage. And I understand that you don't know what's in there. I agree, if it's not sprinkled, if there's a lot of hazards there. It's just the nature of the beast. But I would say with less, it's I hate to make this comparison because I'm going to eat my words later. I won't even, never mind. So I just think if you're not going to allow, if you're going to limit how much property can be used for storage and limiting building size, you would just have property owners buying up more property to build storage units elsewhere. It doesn't mean the need goes away. It doesn't mean that they're going to stop building it. It just means that more property elsewhere is going to be eaten up by storage because there is a need for it. So I think that's a valid concern, but we're walking a fine line, so I don't know that there's an easy answer.
The way I understood it, when we went to considered the 10,000 square foot buildings, that's per building.
That's right.
Correct.
So depending on your lot size and setbacks and things like that, you could conceivably have 40,000.
You could have
50,000.
You have 200,000.
Right, that's my point.
It's a
So
lot.
Yeah.
Sufficient, yeah.
what we're doing is trying to make it safer for fire safety by limiting that size of the building.
That's right.
That's one of the concerns that we heard. Health and safety and welfare, are we addressing that, or are we just trying to limit, restrict, whatever? So I respect what you're saying, I certainly hear it, but I just want to bring that up, that it is not total square foot that can be put on a piece of property, And I believe we're talking about B2 on that, it would be 10,000 per building.
That's right. No
Yes,
limit in
it's
industrial.
10,000.
And just to be clear,
That's, did I answer your, Chuck, your concerns? I mean, you have a 20,000, it's gonna be 2 buildings rather than 1.
Yeah, in my world, a 20,000 square foot building, that's not really that big. You take your modern schools at 1 story laid out, maybe 400 feet by 400 feet. That's 160,000 square feet. And I'm sure we have firefighting equipment to handle fires in schools nowadays.
With that being said, there's different fire codes for the schools, I believe, and we're not storing, in theory, we're probably not storing batteries, for instance. They're different uses altogether.
I also want to just take this moment to acknowledge that our goal is to try to set boundaries or parameters. We're not asked to be clairvoyant or to anticipate every possible future use. And I think there's a lot of what ifs no matter what direction we go, but I think that part of our charge to get to this point was that the ordinance as written has too many what ifs, and that if we can clean it up, we could set updated boundaries and parameters to the world we know now. And we see this all across the ordinance. You see it in definitions, you see it in land use matrix. We've got things in our land use matrix that, to my knowledge, are industries that don't exist anymore. So I think we're gonna have a hard time pinpointing every possible use or loophole or intended or unintended consequence of this. I do also want to mention that it was mentioned in a letter and in the comments, but from a fire safety standpoint and a health, safety, and welfare standpoint, some of the adjustments we made last Thursday dramatically loosened what we had previously proposed that was supported by the townships, supported by a couple of those townships. And one of the biggest changes was by allowing the commercial storage facility in B2 at all, right? So the version that was supported there had it just in industrial, part 1. Part 2, the fire chief has been pretty consistent in requesting that the height, square footage, and access standards and single story apply to B2 and industrial both. And we seem to have ignored that for industrial and chosen to adopt it for B2 only. We've kind of allowed it in B2, which we weren't before, and added these standards to sort of make it safer. But the request from a safety standpoint was that this be the case for both districts. So as it's currently written, we're still a bit of a ways away from what the chief had recommended from their safety standpoint. We might be all right with that. I just want to make sure to call that out. That has not been addressed in our conversations.
So is it a consensus of most of us here that we might look at reducing the setbacks, making more usable land, eliminating some of the non-conformities that we would be creating by this? Is the 20-foot fire lane a reduction of 5 feet? Is that acceptable to most of us? I think that some of the questions that was brought up because of the attorneys was because of the setbacks, those things. I'm just wondering, can we get this done by reducing the setbacks and the fire lane
think if the fire lane was adjusted to 20 feet on all four sides, or no, I'm sorry, all sides, not all four, all sides. I think that captures the spirit of the emergency access while acknowledging the aforementioned IFC 20-foot access within 150 foot of any point in a building. So that, and the B2 standard setback at 20 feet. So,
Up around a building there.
Yeah.
We're talking about on 26.
and I just want to be clear, I think this goes both ways, all right? Like, I don't think 5 feet, 20 to 25 feet makes a huge difference in a property owner's ability to exercise their rights on their property.
Talking about the perimeter?
Yeah, the emergency access.
Okay.
So I'm not wholly, I understand that if IFC says 20 feet and B2 says 20 feet, that we'd be consistent in keeping it 20 feet, but I don't want to make a mountain out of an anthill here. In my mind, those 5 feet are not the make or break of a project. I do, however, think with hoses and lines and firefighting apparatus, those 5 feet might make a whole world of difference in emergency. But if it's the perception of the stakeholders and this board that those 5 feet are an infringement on their property rights, I understand that argument. But I want to be crystal clear that those 5 feet might make a much bigger difference in emergency than they do in somebody's ability to operate their business profitably. So I would accept 20 feet, but I'm not sure that, in some ways I feel like that's missing the mark. I tell you what's not missing the mark though, is the limiting the second story mezzanine access. For me, whether it's 20 feet, 22 feet, or 24 feet, that second story seems to be a bridge this community is not able and equipped to tackle at this time. That may change, but right now.
So add that in there also. Is that what you're?
I don't, yeah, I mean, if it's 24 feet in height instead of 20 or 22, I think we can discuss that, but I think things get real sticky when you get into that second story, especially in the B2. Okay, I know that fire chiefs from the 3 largest areas advise this to be for industrial and B2, but I have no interest in granting that second story where there's going to be, I mean, especially if we're talking about reducing, like I'm just trying to imagine this conversation played back to us a couple years from now if there's a severe incident. And we sat here and said, they don't need the 5 feet to fight the fire. Second story is no problem. And while we're at it, let's reduce the setback. So who cares if it jumps to an adjacent building? You know, more important to make sure the setback matches buildings that were put here 100 years ago. That's the opposite of planning.
So we'll keep it the way way it's written right now. Let's stay on what we got. We're gonna negotiate not negotiate, but deliberate.
Yeah.
So we've got a red line item in front of us. Sounds to me majority feels it's good to go.
I agree.
From what I'm gathering, besides a couple little tweaks. Health, safety, and welfare, totally get it. I mean, health, safety, and welfare, but let's remember that when we do other cases also. So I guess with no further comments, we can stay with this, with what's been proposed this evening. Move forward, or take a pause, wait 30 days from what I'm gathering. We could, and I'm okay to deliberate for another 2 or 3 hours here, but we're in feet, inches, height, lanes.
So what do you propose?
Well,
I guess what I'm asking is.
Are we within legal guidelines to move this forward to?
With the modifications we're talking?
What's that?
With the modifications that we're talking about
No,
now?
I think just.
Or just as it was?
As it was presented.
Okay.
Because that, I think that's where we're at, we're just kind of back and forth on a few things.
Feels that way.
And
Okay.
is it appropriate to move forward without attorneys, I shouldn't say blessing, but their review of it, and move it on to you commissioners for your approvals? Will it meet criteria? Will it, well, that's not our decision. I guess we'll move it, and if they accept it, then that's where it's gonna have to go. Does that make sense?
What date
So
are
what-
we looking at again?
For what? August 20th is the
20.
next Board of Commissioners meeting.
County attorneys, or attorney, staff, or not staff, the attorney,
Legal counsel.
legal counsel, that's the word I'm looking for. Their staff, I guess, is gonna look at this document and see if it's presentable to move forward, the way I understand it. When county commissioners look at it, they feel it's moved forward. Guess it moves forward and take effect September 1.
And the county commissioners could send it back to us?
I believe so.
So,
We're a recommended body, I believe, on this.
Okay.
No different than some townships recommend here.
my
That's the way
question.
I understand it.
Yeah, my question on that, and I don't want to ask Chuck or Brett to speak on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, but our next regularly scheduled meeting is September 10th. If we,
If you say so.
it is September 10th.
I'd have to look at the calendar.
That's all good. So if we recommend this to the Board of Commissioners,
Yeah.
and based on their thoughts, their input, their review of legal counsel's advice, they want to see it tweaked. I guess my question would be, is there an opportunity, and I don't know how this would work, where the current deferral period, the resolution deferring reviews and decisions regarding commercial storage uses pending completion of zoning ordinance review and amendment process, the period we're in right now, commonly, though not totally accurately, referred to as the moratorium, is that if we send this to them being the Board of Commissioners, and they don't accept it on August 20th, then on September, with no further action, then on September 1st, zoning ordinance reverts to how it's written, pre any of this.
Great question, I don't know.
So, well,
Does that get-
that is what would
Extend
happen.
it.
Right, there would be no change.
There'd be no change. So my question for this board is, do we want to request an extension of the deferral, the resolution of deferral from the Board of Commissioners to at least get to the end of September, so that if they want, I mean, we're real close, that if they want to send it back here September 10th,
Gotcha.
we can discuss it, get it back to them within the month of September, and it's good to go by October 1.
So if I understand you correctly, you're asking that if we recommend, if this board recommends to the county commissioners this motion, and at the same time, put in that request that if the county commissioners don't approve or don't like what we're sending them, they will grant at least another 30-day extension. Is that what you're saying?
I think we would not be able to do a conditional, I don't know, but my hunch would be that we might just want to request a deferral of 30 days from the county commissioners, part 1, and then submit a recommendation of this ordinance for them to review August 20th, step 2. If the county commissioners accept the recommendation to defer, then they can feel free to make the appropriate decision on the 20th, knowing that it can come back to this board on September 10th. We could review it, get it back to the county commissioners before October 1. It brings me no pleasure to suggest an extension to this deferral, but I do feel like whatever concerns are raised by county commissioners, legal counsel on the 20th, we should be able to hammer out on September 10th in enough time for October 1st.
Makes sense to me. Unless there's some procedure that I don't understand. I'm asking Tammy.
I think we should keep the two, personally, I think we should keep the two recommendations to the Board of Commissioners separate.
Absolutely.
So that they could accept or reject either on its own merit.
Well, and the
Then-
board would have the option too of amending whatever you send to them and passing that through too. They do have that option.
Sure.
That's true, so if they wanted to tweak.
They could tweak it and approve it, or they could also say, no, 30 days isn't enough, we want 60 more days in the deferral, send it back to the PC.
Those are all options.
Sounds to me like somebody needs to make a motion.
It'd have to be two
motions.
Two motions
Yeah.
to defer.
Yeah, that's the new one.
This is the new one here.
Either as proposed or with modifications.
Well, I'd like my first motion to be an extension of the resolution.
With that being said, or go ahead.
No,
Do we want to go there or just put it in front of them and let them tweak it? Or bring it
Or
back?
kick it back.
Feel better with
Listen,
that language?
we've got a solid Board of Commissioners, but they've also got a lot on their plate. I think if we provide a recommendation, two separate recommendations, we've spent a lot of time in the weeds in this, Chuck and Brett have too, but I think if we present them two separate recommendations, it would further highlight the clarity and distinction between the two things we're requesting. To us, this might make sense because we've been in it for quite a while, but when it gets to their desk, I think it would be supportive of our efforts and of their understanding of our efforts to have them as two separate recommendations. So my first motion would be to recommend a 30-day extension of the resolution deferring reviews and decisions regarding commercial storage uses pending completion of zoning ordinance review and amendment process adopted by the Board of Commissioners on January 15th, 2026. Period.
Was that the motion?
I believe it
That's
is.
this
It
one
could
right
say
here.
more, but that's it. We're asking for 30 days.
The same part right here.
Well, yeah, it's really not. This is about the text amendment. I'm just asking to recommend postponement of, or a 30-day extension of the resolution adopted by the Board of Commissioners on January 15, 2026 to October 1st, 2026. So this motion is just to recommend an extension of the resolution to the Board of Commissioners for 30 days. Nothing about the text, just an extension of the so-called moratorium, though it is a resolution deferring reviews.
That's a motion? Support, anybody support that motion?
I will support that.
Discussion on the motion. A roll call, Ally, please.
Hinterman,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Bates,
Yes.
Bierman,
No.
Loffbaum,
Yes.
Gooding,
No.
Neal.
No.
Motion passed 4-3.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Good motion.
Sure.
Okay. That one, that was clear? So now, we need a motion, or entertain a motion to move the text as presented this evening in our packets. No corrections. Move on to the Board of Commissioners.
Point of
Right.
information,
Well,
please.
It could be a motion to
I guess
recommend
it's
approval as
approval.
proposed, or you could
It could be
add any
modified.
changes that you might
Well,
want.
I was just in general, I'm sorry, I wasn't making a motion, but
Point of information, please. Are you remembering that on page 5, you had talked about getting rid of the solid privacy fence? And that wasn't.
we talked about it, but we're gonna stay with what we
You're
have.
gonna leave it the way it
We're gonna-
is? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this time we'll entertain a motion for the text that was presented. And everybody at once. We have a motion for approval, postponement, or denial, I guess would be.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of text amendments to the Emmet County zoning ordinance as presented in the August 11th, 2026 Planning Commission zoning evaluation packet and identified as case number PPT EXT 26-01, which amends the Emmet County zoning ordinance by adopting rules and regulations for storage uses, including commercial storage, self-storage, warehousing, motor freight terminal, trucking facility, and home occupation uses.
I'll support.
What's that?
Anything extra, you're good?
Well,
That pretty much said it, I guess. Yep.
we gotta support.
Yes, support. Okay, discussion on motion.
Yes, Chairman. Is there anything in this motion about moving it to the county commissioner?
The motion is
That is.
to move it to the county commissioner.
That's where we'll go next.
Yeah.
Are you saying,
I
Chuck?
just wonder if it was in the motion.
Do you want to say motion to recommend approval of text amendments to the Emmet County Board of Commissioners? Is that what you're saying, Chuck?
The first part of that, yeah.
In the
Right, I
motion-
think he wants to add that sentence, I would assume.
When I first heard the motion, I didn't hear anything about
Yeah.
county commissioners.
Well, I thought that was part of the process when we did this. It has to go to
It
the
is.
county commissioners, so why would we put that in there?
But it's not in the motion.
Would it be necessary?
That's what I'm saying, it's not necessary, that's part of the process.
Does it hurt anything to have it?
No.
Okay, so the motion would be amended, I guess, to recommend
To the Emmet County.
to the Emmet County Board of Commissioners. And then it would go on with the approval of, you want me to read the whole thing again?
Yeah, let's go. Thank you.
No, we had a support, so now do we have to get another support?
I'll support the amended resolution.
Any other discussion on?
I just
the
had,
amended motion?
yeah, I have one point of discussion. Mr. Gooding, wondering if the second section with the following recommended changes, if you would accept the inclusion of the language on screening from 26.42 G1 to the language on screening under 26.3. We discussed it.
That's right.
It was brought up by stakeholders. It to me appears to be, rather than a material change, just an unintentional omission from the previous meeting.
Yes, that would be fine.
and also with me.
The G1.
Yes, yes, sir.
Julie?
To add G1 from 2642 into 2630.
Yeah,
Yes,
good with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay. That's all I've got.
Any other discussion?
Before we vote, I think we ought to have the motion read back to us loud and clear.
You want me to do that? You're good.
Alan's got it.
Motion to recommend to the Emmet County Board of Commissioners approval of text amendments to the Emmet County zoning ordinance as presented in the August 11, 2026 Planning Commission zoning evaluation packet and identified as case number PP Text 2601, which amends the Emmet County zoning ordinance by adopting rules and regulations for storage uses, including commercial storage, self-storage, warehousing, motor freight terminal, trucking facility, and home occupation uses with the following recommended changes. Adding the language on screening from section 2642G1 to the language on screening in section 26.3.
Good, Julie? Okay. Roll call, Ally, please.
Alexander?
Yes.
Bates?
Yes.
Neal?
No.
Yearman?
No.
Loffbaum?
No.
Gooding?
Yes.
Benjamin?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-3.
Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Oh, okay. This time, public comment.
Yes,
This
Mr. Chairman.
is part of the agenda, public comment. Well, let's, everybody good? Need paperwork, need to be moved around? Good? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you. I'll just take a moment to maybe touch on some of the things that were said. It's too bad that some of Chuck's comments weren't further deliberated. Mr. Bates, your comment about what was said a couple months ago, that you actually relaxed some of those things were never advertised, so in a sense, they're not germane to tonight's conversation. Also, the Emmet County Building Department has adopted the International Building Code, and so that means that all buildings and structures in Emmet County are subject to fire suppression in the self-storage things as well. And again, Chuck's point, buildings over 10,000 square feet, again, according to our building code, they would require firewall breaks. So you might have a 1 acre lot that you can put a 15,000 square foot building on. They won't be able to do that now in an industrial zone. That's a shame. Okay, it's too bad. Because we are allowed to do that prior to, this moratorium being in place. And that building would have to have a firewall. It's happening every day, okay? The screening thing, if I recall some of these comments, the screening was not as onerous in the commercial warehousing and all that because the setback that was chosen. And the screening was more obscure and onerous in the self-storage because it was allowed up to normal standard setbacks if it was under 15 feet, did not exceed 15 feet in height. So again, I still think there's a lot of confusion here. This is not intended to be derogatory conversation. I have been here every month proactively, and the lack of a round table, the lack for, a lot of these things, the hours that we spent here tonight, we could have clarified the building code, but no one at this table knows that. Now that is interesting, isn't it? So again, Mr. Bates, put yourself in our shoes. And I apologize for that, because that tone was a little bit out of hand. I have really tried to be tempered here and be meaningful conversation and offering knowledge. We all offer different things to the table, okay? And I do appreciate, especially Mr. Chairman, it's your discretion to allow public comment before this deliberation tonight. We appreciate that. I mean, that's outstanding. But it still doesn't help you guys answer some of these questions. And I said this last week, no one discredits the public safety and health issue, okay? Especially the firefighters. I said that, Mr. Gooding, that they're one of the most dangerous jobs. You as a police officer, retired police officer, one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, okay? No one is discrediting those things. But that's why we have good building codes, good fire codes. So just because only 2 fire jurisdictions in Emmet County have adopted the international code, it does not mean that fire suppression and other fire protection things are not required in Emmet County, because building code has. There's plenty more to discuss, but unfortunately, the roundtable has never been available to this discussion. Thank you and good night. And I do appreciate everything. It might not seem that way, but it's hard, you guys, right? I mean, come on.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else, public comment this evening? Public comment? Okay. Commissioners' comments. They got anything?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I would like to understand from this board and with some input from staff, what language we could provide tonight to ensure and get ahead of any potential computing facility data center development. I understand that we included language in the definition of the storage facilities that doesn't include it. And I understand from our previous conversation with legal counsel that there's some considerations, and I understand that there's to be a conversation potentially in closed session on September 10th regarding that. I am just wondering what we can do this evening, or potentially recommend to the Board of Commissioners to provide that insurance while we work through this next chapter of land use.
Right?
Yes.
I think you could do this, you could request the same thing that we had with regard to storage facilities, and request a resolution to pause any review of data centers and or battery energy storage systems while we develop zoning ordinance standards to address those.
Okay.
And I think it'll probably take more than 9 months.
To that comment, we heard several discussions throughout this process, a round table with, say, stakeholders or community members that have a group, or we would have 20 people, but a representative possibly of the group that could give us some input, maybe? I don't know, just
That was a
thought.
recommendation that I believe it's on the next month's agenda, and we could have some discussion
Okay.
regarding that then.
Just a thought process.
Yes. And if it's all right, I would like
Yes.
to apologize to Doug Knowles for interjecting while he was making public comment, but when Doug first came in asking for his zoning permit, he sent in a letter asking for a clarification, and I immediately sent that letter on to legal counsel. And legal counsel advised last Friday, after our planning commission meeting, without knowing that the planning commission had a discussion about it, that I was able to go ahead and issue that zoning permit because of the vested interest in that property and the nuances that were involved in that particular case. And so last Friday, I called Mr. Knowles and let him know that I would be issuing that zoning permit as soon as I got back into the office. So that was how that was handled. It wasn't because of anything that the board did. It was because of the interpretation and the review of the specific facts in that case. So that was already issued Monday this week.
Thank you. Okay, we got anything else?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I would make a motion to recommend to the Emmet County Board of Commissioners to request a resolution deferring reviews and decisions regarding data centers, including but not limited to facilities primarily devoted to the housing of computer servers, data processing equipment, network infrastructure, and associated cooling systems and battery energy storage systems, to allow the Emmet County Planning Commission to conduct a full review of that land use in Emmet County.
Should we have
A timeline?
Should we have a suggested timeline?
12 months.
Okay?
Do we want to set 12 or?
Or I would also be open to the discretion of the Board of Commissioners to choose that timeline. At the end of the day, they're the ones making the resolution.
I'd feel more open, let them set that.
Yeah,
If they think it's
I'm-
16 months,
Yeah.
they'll have more
I would
time to
defer.
get with staff or.
I would
or
defer
whatever.
that timeline setting ability to the Board of Commissioners.
That's your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a question?
Me? No.
Okay.
I'm just listening.
I would support that motion.
Discussion on motion of support?
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I know there's a lot of interest in data centers. And we found out recently from our attorney that what the state law is. State law says the county cannot exclude them just because even though the people might not want them, you have to find a place for them. I take a similar position that President Trump takes. They should generate their own electricity. They should have their own water system. And they should be, I would say, at least 2,000 feet from any residential homes.
Did you want to add that to the motion, or do you
No,
want to discuss?
I just
That was just.
tossed that
general-
in there for discussion.
Sure.
General Commissioner comments? It's, motion, Julie supported that motion to introduce a resolution for moratorium on data centers in a
A
nutshell.
request for a resolution deferring reviews and
Request.
decisions from the Board of Commissioners for a timeline of their choosing.
Discussion, Ally, roll call please.
Neal?
Yes.
Alexander?
Yes.
Gooding?
Yes.
Bierman?
Yes.
Lombard?
Yes.
Hinterman?
Yes.
Bates?
Yes.
Okay, other commissioner comments this evening? The one thing, thanks everyone for hard work we put in here, so we'll move on to the next one. Everyone enjoy the rest of their summer and we'll stand adjourned.